The presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, AAC, and human rights activist, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, has just been released, in the last 48 hours from Kuje prison. He's back now in the trenches and, of course, is here with us live, joining us from our Abuja studio to talk to us about other related issues, especially as 2027, is upon us already. Mr. Omoyele Sowore, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, for someone who has spent quite a number of days in Kuje prison, you do look fresh this morning. Speaking of which, let's begin from there. We've heard you talk about your experience there, but I'm more curious about, some would say you're a regular customer with Nigerian prisons now, following past events, but more importantly, your observations with the prison system. And if you became president, what are the changes that Nigerians should expect?
Well, I went to prison, but what they call prison in Nigeria is a correction center. For those who might have fallen in love with the adjective, and let me make it clear that there's nothing corrective in the correctional center, and it is not different from what you get on the outside. But how to process it is to say to everyone that if the Nigerian government don't care about those of you who are on the outside, not necessarily free, why do you think they'll care about people who are intentionally dumped in prison for different reasons? But what I found very interesting, well, not interesting, it's public knowledge, is that a majority of the prisoners there are still likely awaiting trial prisoners. That is to say, in that prison, there were over 1,158 people while I was there, and 871 of them are awaiting trial. Some of them have been awaiting trial for years, some as long as 10 years, as someone told me. I met a guy who had served his entire term, and they restarted another section of his trial, and it's been there for another 7 years now, according to him. He was imprisoned there in, I think, when he was 22 years old, and he's now 36, still awaiting trial. So the prisons are generally overpopulated, sanitary conditions are terrible. I was in prison at the time that they said over 37 prisoners there were undergoing treatment for tuberculosis. The tuberculosis were detected in December, and they've been undergoing treatment for 6 months. Nobody can tell you whether they have improved or not, and we don't even know who is who, because it's jam-packed. And they deliberately, of course, upon my bail being revoked, DSS sent a delegation to the prison to make sure they put me in the population that had tuberculosis patients. So there's nothing there to celebrate. But the question you asked me is what I would do. Of course, we are going to, when we get to power in this country, reform the entire process, make it correctional. And what I would do mostly is to engage in non-custodian, reforms. We don't need a lot of people who are in prison to be in prison. A lot of people who are in prison are there because they can fulfill their bail conditions. Some bail conditions are as low as 5 million sureties requirements, and people can't fulfill it because there's nobody. The bail conditions are set by judges and police and DSS, and they collaborate in such a way that you can't meet them. And so a lot of people are languishing in jail. I met some people who were forest guards. They've been there now for 75 days. They said they were arrested because they said they were forming an illegal organization. The NSA detained them for 35 days. Then when Femi Falana intervened, they took them to Kuje. And after they were granted bail, they haven't been able to fulfill their bail conditions, 7 of them. And because it's almost impossible to fulfill these bail conditions the way they are set. So you have a lot of people who are in prison just trying to meet bail. So many of them are put there for very, very minimal offenses. So in general, we should think about how we can punish people without sending them to prison, or not punish them for offenses they didn't commit. And likely, prison in Nigeria is a place for class war. What I mean class war is that it's usually the poor people, likely poor people who are in prison, a majority. I met a guy who said he was only able to get 2 court dates in a year. And when he went to court, they adjourned. And that's it. I met another guy who doesn't even go to court because the prison said they don't have vehicles to take him to the court. The court that he was being tried at is a remote court in Abuja. So they don't even bother to take him to court anymore. Yet he's there as a prisoner. So reforms, yes, to improve and ensure that the prison system is also part of society so that you can correct and reform people. But what we have in Nigeria today is there's nothing corrective about it. In fact, a lot of criminal activities are happening in prison because the prisoners have to survive. There's no prisoner, no average prisoner can eat prison food, for instance. But there's huge budget for prison food. There's a lot going on, but like I said, who will care about prisons when they don't care about you, even when you're not in prison?
So talk to us about the kinds of, you mentioned a few others, because right now, every experience you have is going to be a pointer for us to ask you what you're going to do differently. So issues around awaiting trial, the kinds of reform require, what will it be? Because it's not a today conversation. Since I was young, now this is where I am. I'm still hearing about awaiting trial. Is it a problem that cannot be solved? Where are the lapses? Is it in the administration of justice? Is it where is the missing link here? Because these are human beings as well.
Well, like I said, it has something to do with a broken system, a broken justice system. But it also has something to do with our society being a very discriminatory society, where the powerful, that description they say about the elephant and the cobweb, that an elephant can pass through the cobweb and an ant can't. So it is that the prisons are populated by poor people who already are suffering the inequality in our system. That is number one. But the most important thing you've mentioned, I knew about awaiting trial in 1989 or thereabout, when we were at the University of Lagos and Femi Falana came to address us, and we've been talking about awaiting trial my entire adult life. And I wasn't shocked, but when I got to prison, because they have a board there where they write out the names of, the list of people who are in the prison and under which category. The awaiting trial population is the highest. 871 persons are awaiting trial in prison. So that means if all the awaiting trial issues were trashed, most of them probably won't even be in prison in the first place. Well, how can you not await trial when there are no vehicles to take you to court? Or when the judges adjourn a case for 6 months? Or sometimes the judges don't even show up in court at all. And in some cases, it is a connivance between security agents, the legal system, particularly magistrates. Oh my goodness, the magistrate courts are evil in Nigeria. They will know that they have no jurisdiction over a case. It might be a federal case, but they would accept to send somebody to prison over a matter they have no jurisdiction and they have no intention to solve. So they will just send you to prison. It's summary. It's like summary conviction. It's happened to several persons. Most of the people that are in prison were sent there by policemen, likely, who connive with all these magistrates. They will go obtain an order to detain somebody for 14 days for a case they claim they're investigating, that they are not investigating. At the end of the day, those people are forgotten in the prisons. And also, the chief judge of Abuja or the chief judge of every state is supposed to visit the prisons on a regular basis and take a look at the prison population. The chief judge of Abuja hasn't been there in a year. So all of the processes that are put in place to ensure that these populations are reduced they're not functioning in any way. So that's a problem. It's a problem of access to justice. It's a problem of negligence. It's a problem of connivance between all the security agencies and several other, yes. It's terrible.